Hi everyone, I'm Rick Beato. In today's Everything Music, we're going to talk about chromatic line movement. Now, we've done some of this when we're talking about our chromatic mediant modulations. I'm going to talk about how to make your line writing more interesting in your orchestrations and in your harmonic progressions. That's coming up next. One of the topics I brought up recently that I didn't really go into was line cliches. Now, line cliches are called cliches because they're really common in songs. The most common line cliche that you'll hear are ones that sound like this. That would be the song Michelle by the Beatles. Or it could be Stairway to Heaven. It could be My Funny Valentine. It could be Fixin' a Hole by the Beatles. Line cliches are when you have in this case, in Michelle, you take an E minor chord and then you drop the lowest note, the root of the chord, down chromatically. So it becomes E minor chord to an E flat augmented to a G major in second inversion, so D, and then this would essentially be like a C sharp half diminished chord with no third. And that's like a C major 7 chord with no third. And then it resolves down to B major, or it could be B7. So that's one type of line cliche where the root moves down chromatically. Another type of line cliche might be like in the James Bond theme, where the fifth of the chord moves up chromatically. So here we're going E minor, then the B raises to a C to become a first inversion C major chord, then it moves up to C sharp, then it becomes a first inversion C sharp diminished chord. Back to C major in first inversion, then back to E minor. So that is a line cliche of a different kind. Now, any time that there are chromatic movements that are predictable or that are in a lot of songs, that's why they call them line cliches. Now, in the James Bond case, you don't hear that much because that is so signature of that particular piece that people really can't use that. Now, you can take this idea of a line cliche and use it with passing through, let's say, a chromatic mediant modulation like we talked about a few episodes ago. If I take an E minor chord and I move the two outer voices in contrary motion, so I'm going to take the root, E, and move it down a half step, and the fifth and move it up a half step. So I go from E minor to a C minor chord, and then I'm going to move the outer voices once again in contrary motion. So I have a D chordal plus 4, so it's a perfect fourth and an augmented fourth. So our outer voices are moving chromatically in contrary motion. Listen. Then I go to here. Then I go to here. My inner voice G is staying the same. And then I might go to here. Okay, that would be a cool modulation because my tritone is moving up by half step and I'm going. And then I could go to something. I'm moving two voices at a time. So E minor, modulating a major third down to C minor in first inversion, to a D chordal plus 4, to an E7, right? So my tritone is moved up a half step. Then I move that tritone back down and I make it part of an A7 chord, and I can make it augmented to an A major, and then resolve to D flat major over D, or it could resolve straight to D major. So once again. The voice leading is really important. Trying to find these chromatic lines and any type of inner line movement that take advantage of things like common tones. Trying to go to unexpected places or maybe expected places, but with really smooth voice leading. I would look for these things to bring melodic interest and have unexpected changes. You could go. It's kind of a cool sound there. So I went right to D Lydian. One of my favorite cues that makes use of this chromatic inner line movement is a cue from the James Bond movie Spectre. The cue's by Thomas Newman. It's called Donna Lucia. It starts out right in the first part of it. This is what I love. Part of the James Bond thing are these chromatic movements. You also hear a lot of these minor 6 chords or minor 6 nines or minor major 7. That's kind of that sound of the 50s and early 60s when you hear a chord like this. That's an E minor 6 9. That really gives you that sound of that film noir. Or if you have a chord kind of like this, like that minor major 7 sound is that it gives you once again that film noir dark kind of sound. Minor with a major 7th or minor with a major 6, a Dorian sound, but the minor 6 9 sound is really cool for that. But the piece starts out like this. So we've immediately gone from E major to E minor. So there's your chromatic parallel major to minor move there. He starts the melody on the 5th to the 9th, which is really powerful. It's a great interval move. Then he goes to E minor. Then he uses that natural 6, the C sharp, to bring that sound. He wants to bring that sound of that darkness of that era. Keep it modern. This is cool. This is modern. And then that minor 6 sound is really gives you that sound. Then he does it again. So E major, there's your minor 6. That's a little different. Now he's using a minor 11 sound because he goes the second time he goes 9th on the E major. So you got, and then he goes up to the 11th on the E minor chord. But there's a little inner line movement. You hear that passing through there's your minor 9, 3rd to the 11th. First time he's using a minor 6 sound, the second time he's using a minor 9 sound. But then he brings in, after that, then he goes to A7, right? So I've got G and C sharp in there. Then he plays the G in the bass, and it's 5th, 6th, 3rd, 6th, but he sneaks in the C natural here. So he goes, because he's setting up this move to F sharp major. Listen to it. So we have a F sharp major to an F sharp 7 with a 9. He's doing diatonic 6 intervals. It's a great sound. To go from that and then beautiful use of chromaticism there. So on the first chord we have E major, so the G sharp moves to G on the second chord, right? Now we move back to then to this E minor 11 sound, then it goes to A7 to essentially like a C major over G, and then he goes up to F. He moves down a half step to F sharp major. He's alternating between. He's moving diatonic 6, so you've got the third and the root down to the ninth and the seventh, the flat 7. So it's a ninth chord. It's a flat 7 with a ninth. Then he goes to the augmented chord here. It's going F sharp augmented, which would be this. And then he resolves down to F sharp major. There's your D, which drops down to C sharp. This next section uses what you might call a tritone substitute. This is actually very similar to what Randy Newman does in the video that I did where I did this cue from Toy Story called the Claw. And it's a half step downward modulation. And he's going from D Lydian to D flat major essentially. But he has a little bit of inner line play. Check it out. He's going da 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 on the D flat, but he's going on the D Lydian. He goes. So you've got the ninth and the sharp 11, and then he puts the sixth in there, and then on the D flat, it's beautiful. He goes the ninth to the major third to the sus 4. Check it out. That chromatic movement. So to go from that, and then to there, and then. So if you think about it, we're using those two notes there. We're using E and G sharp, and then F sharp and A. And then we're using notes of D flat major. So you've got all this chromaticism going in there, but it sounds so natural. That's the thing, is that beautiful harp, and then back to D Lydian, and then that time he's just going da. He's staying on it. He's not putting in the sus in there. He's not even doing the major third on that. But this chromatic half-step movement from the flat 2 to the tonic that acts like a tritone substitute but is using the Lydian chord as the tritone substitute. So we've got, once again, D Lydian. So I got the sharp 4 and the ninth to the third and the fifth of D major. And then we've got really, really beautiful inner line movement. This is the kind of thing that you should really experiment with, are these types of modulations, because they're really interesting. I was actually asked recently about tritone substitutes and about how they would work. Generally, you see them in jazz, this half-step modulation like that, but I was saying that you can use a flat 2 Lydian to major, or to you're using Lydian, D Lydian to D flat Ionian, because you're going D flat Lydian. Now Lydian that'd be A major, and then you're going to D flat major. Once again, this is D flat major. If you think of it as C sharp major, that's a chromatic mediant modulation right there. We had talked about it. Somebody had asked me in relation to my video on the chromatic mediant modulation. It's not initially clear because of the half-step movement there that you're doing, because you're doing D Lydian, which is from A major. So the ear is still hearing those related key centers. Okay, this is a good time to talk about a new concept, and it's called hidden mediant relationships. And the reason they're hidden is that they're hidden because of their modal relationship. But to the ear perceives the actual parent key centers. If we're going D Lydian to D flat Ionian, well, D Lydian actually comes from A major, okay? So D Lydian equals A major. D flat Ionian is really C sharp major. That's the other name for it, right? C sharp major. Okay, now this relationship from A major to C sharp major is a chromatic mediant relationship, okay? It's a third related modulation, but it's related by its parent scale. You're going from 3 sharps in this D Lydian to C sharp major. We'll call it D flat major, to 5 flats, okay, or 7 sharps. It's hidden because we are moving from A major to D flat, and to the ear is hearing that change of modes. Let's say that we're talking D Lydian to D flat major. Let's look at these 2 scales. Okay, so D Lydian is D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp. That's your D Lydian scale. If I put D flat major down here, D flat, right, which is really C sharp, then D flat, E flat, F, G, A flat, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, okay? If we look at these and look at the enharmonics here, what do we have? Well, these 2 notes are definitely different. These notes are definitely different. But is this another note in here, right? That's not D sharp, okay? Is this an enharmonic? Yes, this is an enharmonic. That's an F sharp, okay? So that note is the same here. G sharp and A flat are the same. A and B flat, or A and A flat, B and B flat, C and C sharp. Okay, but the C sharp is really a D flat. Okay, so we don't have as many notes that are different. We have the E flat, which is definitely not in this scale. We have the F, which is definitely not in this scale. The G flat is F sharp. The A flat is G sharp. The B flat, okay, that's definitely not in this scale. And the C natural is not in the D Lydian scale. We've lost 4 notes from this scale if you look at this D Lydian scale to D flat Ionian. We're going A major to D flat major. I said C sharp major so you'd realize that it's a third. It's a chromatic mediant because the common tone between these, the C sharp, well, that's really D flat. That's your hidden. That's why it's called a hidden mediant relationship, because you wouldn't immediately think of D flat being C sharp and A and D flat being related by a major third, but they are. So that's why it's hidden. So that loss of these notes from this key to this key, okay, the flattening of these notes, is what gives it that powerful pull in resolution. The same thing, like I was saying with the Randy Newman cue, the claw that we talked about, where he's going from essentially from E flat Lydian to D major. So he's doing the exact same thing. It's essentially just a half step away from this. But this is kind of how these modal modulations work, and this is why. You could think of this as a tritone substitute or tritone substitution because it's a flat 2 to 1, but it's really not. It's really a Lydian. It's a completely different relationship. When you think of a tritone substitution, you're thinking of a dominant chord, a half step above the tonic chord. This is hidden mediant relationships that I want you to think about here, because there's a lot of possibilities with this, and I'm going to do a whole episode on this, but I wanted to introduce this idea here because we've had it now in 2 different cues that I've discussed. Now the same cue, like I said, was in The Claw by Randy Newman. Must be Newman family thing, which is beautiful, where he goes from E flat Lydian over B flat, and then he goes to D major from E flat Lydian over B flat. It's the same thing as Thomas Newman doing this, different key. Completely different use of the exact same device. Sounds totally different, but it's actually using the exact same harmonic device. That's all for now. Please subscribe here to my Everything Music YouTube channel. And if you're interested in the Beato book, please write me at rickbeato1@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.